Hello, everyone, and welcome to Money Show's virtual event. Next up is Tony Giardini, the president and CEO of Trilogy Metals, whose session today is titled Trilogy Metals High Grade, Safe Jurisdiction, and Solid Partners. At the end of the session, if there's time, we're going to take a few questions. So if you want to type it in the box on the right side of the platform, please do so, and we will address them at the end. So, Tony, thanks for being here today. You have the floor, sir. Please take it away.
Greg, thank you, and thanks to the Money Metals and Mining Virtual Expo. Trilogy Metals were listed on the Toronto Stock Exchange, New York Stock Exchange under the ticker symbol TMQ. For more information on the company, I encourage you to visit our virtual booth at the conference, or also go to our website, trilogymetals.com. So with that, let me get started. As Greg said, I'm going to talk to you about high grade, safe jurisdiction, and solid partners. Before I do that, I just want to draw your attention to the following 2 pages, which indicate that I'll be making forward-looking statements during the presentation. With that, let me get started. Trilogy owns a 50% interest in an area called the Ambler Mining District. The Ambler Mining District is located in the great state of Alaska, which is a safe jurisdiction with a long mining history. The district itself has significant upside potential from an exploration perspective, and we have 2 projects. We have an advanced development project called Arctic, and we have an advanced exploration project called Borneite. And I'm going to talk to you about both of those projects and also our partnerships. And there's 3 partnerships that I'll be focused on. They include South 32, our joint venture partnership in the district, NANA, our partner in the district as well, our native partner, and then ADA, which is an arm of the state of the government of Alaska, which is focused on providing infrastructure to allow for the development of the district. In terms of our share capitalization, we're in a really strong position. We've got a cash balance currently of about $10 million at the corporate level, but more importantly, at the JV level, which I'll talk a little bit more about, there's approximately $138 million at the JV, and that's sufficient to fund our operations for the next 4 years. We have a market cap of about $325 million. Still believe there's lots of value in terms of the upside story associated with the stock. We have meaningful shareholders. A number of those, Electrum, Baupost, Polson, have been with the story since 2012 when the company was spun out of Nova Gold. South 32, which is our partner in the district, also owns 11.4%. So we've got strong partners that have big commitments to the company going forward, and management and the board have been taking more and more of a stake in terms of share ownership as well. I mentioned 3 partnerships. Let me start with South 32. South 32 has been involved with the project since 2017. In total, South 32 has invested about $200 million in the Ambler Mining District, or in Trilogy. They invested $145 million to create the JV that was formed at the beginning of 2020. They also invested $30 million in exploration that was conducted in the district from 2017 to 2019. And lastly, they own 11% of 11.2% of the Trilogy stock. So altogether, they've invested just over $200 million for their stake. They're a great partner. They have a number of operations around the world, and what they bring is obviously critical bench strength, development capabilities, exploration know-how in the district. And in many respects, they've already conducted a lot of the due diligence in terms of better understanding what this ore body is, and the fact that they contributed $145 million to help form the JV underscores their commitment to the project and the district as a whole. This is the district itself. It's 172,000 hectares. That's a large land position. There's a few components to this slide. The first is that the area in red at the top, those were original mining claims from Kennecott acquired in 2003. The green area are the NANA contributions that came into this JV in 2011. And the blue area is the area of interest that covers the entire district that is held jointly by South 32 and Trilogy. I mentioned our partnership with NANA. NANA is a native corporation. They represent the northwest part of the state, and the northwest part of the state and NANA have a rich mining history. On the slide, you'll see that there's a Red Dog mine. The Red Dog mine is the largest zinc mine in the world. And in many ways, we're modeling our development of the district on the Red Dog mine. Red Dog has a partnership with NANA and has a net profit interest in that mine. They also worked with Ada to build a road and a port towards Cavallina. And we're looking at the same opportunity in working with Ada to build a road that would connect the district. But instead of going to the coast, we'd be going inland to the Dalton Highway and eventually connecting to Anchorage. And I'll speak more about that when I talk about Ada. What else? The other thing that NANA brings to the table is employment and workforce, procurement opportunities, and we see a very long, mutually beneficial relationship with NANA as we move the project forward. In terms of infrastructure, I mentioned the state of Alaska, and the key to opening up this district is this Ambler mining district, the proposed Ambler access road. So this road has come a long way in the last several years, and we're in a very strong position where the final record of decision was received in 2020, and we're now focused on the detailed engineering associated with the road. The road is to be constructed by Ada, the state of Alaska, and then what would happen is Ambler Metals and other participants in the district would enter into tolling agreements for use of a road going forward. And so we're very focused on the next steps, which are the detailed engineering. And then we would move into the financing and construction of a road, which, as I said, is key to opening up the district and looking forward. So we're in a strong position. The record of decision was received last year. We signed an agreement earlier this year with Ada regarding the next step in the road. And it's a joint funding agreement of $70 million, $35 million from Ambler Metals, $35 million from Ada to advance the detailed engineering. And most recently, we've had a couple of press releases out that talk about access, land access to for private ownership of land, and also land access through right-of-ways for BLM. And so things are definitely moving forward with respect to the road. This is where the proposed road would go. All of those dots, squares, stars are potential targets in the district, and I'll speak a little bit more about the exploration potential as we move forward. And this is what Arctic looks like. So Arctic is our advanced development project. You can see it's a reasonably large resource of 43.4 million tons. But what's really impressive about Arctic is the grades. So that's 4.2% copper equivalent. So you can see it's got copper, zinc, lead, gold, and silver. This is a high-grade deposit in an incredibly safe jurisdiction. These are the economics from a feasibility study that Trilogy prepared in 2020. We used the same prices we used for our PFS, which was prepared in 2017, 2018. And I'll show you what it looks like in the current spot environment. But as you can see, this is a very profitable mine. After-tax NPV at 8%, $1.1 billion. Cash costs on a byproduct basis, 32 cents. And an IRR of 27% with a very quick payback of roughly 2.6 years. If you look at this in the current price environment, you see that that NPV effectively doubles to 2.2 billion. And we see that the IRR goes to 40.8% and cash costs actually become negative 10 cents because of a credit from all of the other metals. So we think there's lots of opportunity to even enhance the economics further. You can see on this slide that the mine life is 12 years, and we're focused on bringing satellite deposits into production, and I'll be speaking to that when I discuss exploration upside in the district. In terms of the products that we'll be producing, this is very much a copper mine, but it produces 3 different cons, a copper con, a zinc con, and we call it a precious metal con because by value it's more precious metals, but by quantity it's more lead. You can see the breakdown of revenue in the slide on in the pie chart on the left. And what that indicates, that's based on the base case prices. So obviously in a spot price environment, the percentage of revenue from copper would be higher, as would the gold and silver percentage. Zinc and lead would be somewhat lower. So we've got lots of flexibility. The precious metals component, which is about 80,000 ounces on a 100% basis when you factor in gold equivalent, gives us a lot of options in terms of how we look at the financing of a project going forward. In terms of how this compares to other projects that are out there, you can see that this is an independent report prepared by Woods Mackenzie and RBC, and it shows after-tax IRR and after-tax NPV benchmarked based on initial and sustaining capital. So Trilogy Arctic is way up on the far right. That's where you want to be, high IRR and high profitability index. So this compares very favorably to other projects out there. This is an overview of what the site would look like. The tailings facility top left, open pit to the right, infrastructure in the valley. The Ambler Metals team is working on optimizing the design of the project now. So they're primarily focused on water management and tailings management. And we have a $27 million campaign planned for the site that's going to actually be beginning next month in May. So we're very excited about getting back out in the field and looking at the district from the perspective of exploration opportunities and reaffirming our development plans as we move this project forward. In terms of where the permitting process is, we expect to start the permitting process this summer. We see the permitting process taking somewhere between 30 and 36 months, which should put us in a position to make an investment decision by the end of 2023 or early 2024. From a permitting point of view, there's no federal land, so it's going to be easier to permit. We're primarily focused on state and borough lands and borough approvals. You can see that the permits that we required are mostly state permits with 144 wetlands permit. So as I said, we expect to kickstart this process later this year, but we've already done a lot of work in terms of advancing the process to date. In terms of exploration potential, this is where it gets really exciting. I mentioned that we have a program this year of $27 million, just 14,600 meters of drilling. We're going to focus on 7,600 meters of drilling at Arctic and then 7,000 at some of the satellite deposits. So what the game plan here is to look for deposits that are close to Arctic, that are within a reasonable trucking distance, that ultimately can be used to hopefully extend the mine life at Arctic. And you can see this as there's a number of historic resources here already: Horse Creek, Sunshine, Shunak, BT. And I'll speak to Borneite separately in a couple of minutes. This is an airborne survey that we ran a couple of years ago. All of those red dots are exploration targets and selected prospects. This gives you a bit of an indication. This is what Arctic looked like on that survey. And you can see the outline that we have is the outline of the pit. And the anomaly it comes up shows quite well. And you can see that there's other anomalies in and around us that haven't been drilled yet, Center of the Universe being one on this slide. The next slide just gives you an indication of Sunshine. We've done some drilling at Sunshine, but if you look to the left there, you'll see another anomaly that hasn't been drilled that we're hoping to get to this year and hope to prove out more resources at Sunshine. And this is some of the drilling that we did at Sunshine in 2019. And you can see that there's a lot of high-grade intercepts there, 6% copper equivalent and over 3% in many cases. So we believe we have lots of optionality at deposits like Sunshine and some of the other satellite deposits in the district. I mentioned Borneite as an advanced development project. It's interesting that when South 32 initially made its investment in Trilogy, their focus was primarily on Borneite. And you can see that that's borne out by the fact that $31 million was expended on drill campaigns from 2017, 18, and 19. And there's a 60 million ton underground resource of roughly 3% copper, which we're very excited about. But in addition to that, there's 120 million tons of roughly 1% copper in an indicated and inferred category. So the game plan this year is to hopefully do some more soil sampling in and around Borneite. And if we're able to get a couple of drill holes in and around the district, we plan to. What's interesting about Borneite, as I said before, is that it's got size and scale and grade. And there have been some very high grade holes drilled there in the past. And we're looking to look for more opportunities, obviously near surface and better. There's also a reasonably large inferred cobalt resource. And for those of you that are watching the space and looking at cobalt prices, you'll see that it's been performing quite well. So when you factor in cobalt, copper, zinc, Trilogy and the Ambler mining district is well covered in terms of the critical metals that are going to be needed as we look at infrastructure, electrification of a grid and EV vehicles. When we look at the Ambler Mining District, we talk about it as a VMS district, and this is how it compares to other VMS districts in the world. You can see Flin Flon, Noranda, Hokuruku. These are all deposits that have been mined for decades. In the case of Flin Flon, 75 years. In the case of Noranda, 85 years. So we think there's a lot of similarities with respect to the Ambler Mining District and the ability to extend mine life for a considerable time period there as well. In terms of getting things done and where we're at, this gives you an idea of some of the things that have happened. I've spoken to some of these. We formed the JV last year, record of decision on the road, the feasibility study. We put in a management team at Ambler Metals. We've approved our work budget, the $27 million. We've had the right-of-ways on the access road from your U.S. Bureau of Land Management, National Park Service, and we've entered into a funding agreement, and this doesn't include the most recent getting thing done category, which was the access agreement that was recently signed with Doyon. Going forward, the upcoming catalysts that we see are going to be the feasibility study update and additional work that will be done at the Ambler Metals level. And as I mentioned, that's really to push us towards the permitting process that we expect to begin this year. We're going to have our drill campaign of 27,000 meters and then, or 14,600 meters, $27 million. And we hope to also advance a road. We indicated in a recent press release that there's a budget of $13 million for the road, which will be spent on moving the road development forward. So with that, Greg, I am going to wrap up. I do want to remind everyone that we do have a virtual booth, and I encourage you to visit our booth. Once again, Trilogy Metals, TMQ, listed on Toronto and New York, and I'd be happy to take any questions if time is permitted.
Time certainly does allow that. We don't currently have any questions, but I've just asked everybody to post those. So please, please do so now, and we'll be giving you a minute to do that. In the meantime, I do want to mention to everybody to do stick around and chat in the virtual booth with the Trilogy team, as Tony mentioned. Just remember to refresh your browser, and that will load the new chat feature after the session ends. And while we're waiting here, just want to remind everybody also over the next few days to remember to spend some time in the interactive virtual hall, where you're going to find exclusive offers from sponsors like Trilogy and other companies, research reports, videos, live Q&A with the experts, prize drawings, and much more. And let's see, we don't currently, oh, wait a minute, here we go. Greg's got one. How do get a list of contractors for road building, drilling for employment?
That's a great question. And you know, that process, the road building is going through ADA. So I encourage anyone who's interested in looking at the contracting side or any of the contracts associated with the next phase of development to go onto the ADA website, where there's lots of information. And that process is just beginning. So there will be lots of opportunities. And we obviously are very focused on creating jobs within the state of Alaska, as ADA is, because that's a mandate. And they'll be looking to work very closely with the communities in and around the Ambler Mining District and creating employment opportunities there. So I would encourage people to visit the ADA website.
Oh, I see. And Greg, the gentleman who asked that question, says he lives in Fairbanks and he knows some drillers. So he's a truck driver. So that's why he was curious. Thank you, Greg, for sharing those details. So we have some other questions here. Stephanie wants to know, can you give me an argument for purchasing Trilogy rather than a copper ETF?
Well, copper ETF is a great story. I mean, copper's done really, really well here, and I think that there's definitely lots of upside in terms of copper. I think what you're getting with the Trilogy story, though, is that you know, last year we didn't have a drill campaign, and I think the stock got beat up a little bit as a result of that. And this year we're going to have a very sizable drill campaign, and we think there's lots of opportunities to expand the resources, not just within the Arctic district, but obviously at Borneite. And so it's really that leverage that you're going to get through the drilling and the exploration program in terms of moving the project forward. So we see that as a very you know, positive consideration. Plus, there's the exposure to the other metals within the portfolio. There's a gold exposure, silver exposure, zinc, and in due course, copper or cobalt, excuse me. So I think those are the key components. It's really about executing, and we see as we start to tick more of those boxes moving forward, we think the valuation is definitely going to start to move as well. So we feel very confident about that in terms of next steps.
Well, a good follow-up is a question that just got posted. In a best case, ideal world situation with all lights green, when would you expect to start production?
Yeah, there's three factors that are involved in terms of a production timeframe. The first one is a permitting process, so we're going to kickstart that this year. That's going to take roughly 30 to 36 months. That puts us in a position to make an investment decision sometime around the end of 23, early 24. And at that point, that's when the road construction and hopefully the mine construction will begin more or less at the same time as we're able to get an ice road in and get equipment in to start that. So we're sort of targeting somewhere towards the end of 27 to early 28 in terms of a logical time period. Obviously, if things could be expedited more quickly in terms of permitting or on road building or mine construction, maybe there's some flexibility. But we think those are reasonable dates in terms of how we're looking at the timeline. So there's a lot of work to do between now and then, but we feel we're in a very strong position. And I think as you look at the copper market and the dynamics, we'd be hitting the market at a pretty good time in terms of bringing new high-grade production into the market.
Good deal. Stuart says, do you anticipate selling streams for gold, etc.?
Streams is one of those interesting options. And when you have a polymetallic deposit like we do, it's definitely a viable opportunity. I think we'll have to weigh the streams against other funding opportunities, of which we think there are many. So it's a nice option to have, but I wouldn't say we've committed one way or the other that that's a path that we're going to go down.
Okay, and David says, is Borneite capable of being put into production without S32?
I think that, we're partners with South 32, so I really can't speculate if it could be put into production with or without South 32. What we see is that Bornite has a potential to definitely be a world-class deposit. It's got size, scale, and grade, and we think that it will stand up well against other deposits, and it's in a tier one jurisdiction. There's a great workforce. There's a great ability to tap into infrastructure, and once the access road is in place, it really gives us lots of flexibility. There's a dearth of these kind of copper assets out there, and there's lots of competition for them. So we think there's definitely a strong case to see Bornite move forward. And as we showed on the Arctic economics, there's a lot of torque to Arctic. Arctic goes from a $1.1 billion NPV to roughly $2.2 billion on the basis of changes in current spot prices. So we think that the project dynamics are very attractive with a very quick payback. So we're confident we'll be able to move forward on these projects. But we're partners with South 32 and we're working very, very well together, and we expect to continue working well with South 32 going forward.
Very good. Let's see. CAD wants to know any environmental concerns there. Compare and contrast to Pebble.
Yeah, I can't really speak to Pebble in terms of how what Pebble went through. What I can tell you is that the road process has gone forward as we would expect. We had a very long, Ada had a very long process to go through with the BLM. There's opposition to the road, and that will be addressed through lawsuits that have been filed against the road process. But we expect that once those lawsuits are heard, it's really about process, and we'll be moving forward. And the fact that we've committed $5 million each, and being Ambler Metals and Ada, to moving the engineering forward underscores our commitment. In terms of environmental, the road is private industrial use road only. It's going to be an all-weather, hard-packed road. The key to operating in that district is going to be about the environment, about working very closely with the Northwest Arctic Borough, with NANA, and with the stakeholders, the native stakeholders in the area. And it's really about their subsistent hunting and fishing lifestyle, which they don't want to see impacted. So we're very mindful of that. And one of the impacts, unfortunately, of COVID this past year is that we haven't been able to get out to the communities and continue to interact closely with the communities in terms of moving forward. But that's going to be a big part of the push over the next 3 to 4 years. Having NANA as a partner puts us in a very strong position. NANA is going to benefit economically from the development of a mine. There's going to be job opportunities, procurement opportunities in the district. And we think that we share their environmental focus and aspirations in terms of how we move this project forward. So we're very focused on being good stewards of the environment and working very closely with NANA and the other Native communities. And as we said, making sure that the road doesn't impact subsistence hunting and fishing in the district.
Very good, Tony. So we have another question from Gerard. How is the Trilogy story better than an existing producer like Freeport McMoran?
Well, I think Freeport's a bit of a different story. Freeport's a great story. I I think, you know, the biggest thing for us is we're moving through all of these stages. And as we continue to tick the boxes and demonstrate that we're able to address the next phases, it will be reflected in the valuation. A company like an existing producer is very much valued on spot and cash flow generation, et cetera. The other thing that I think really differentiates us from a lot of the companies that are out there is that we're in a tier 1 jurisdiction like Alaska. Secondly, we've got grade. Think about 4.2% copper. Some of those deposits that are being mined out there by many other companies are a tenth of that. They're 0.4, they're 0.3, they're 0.25% copper. So we've got grade on our side. We've got the ability to weather low prices once this gets built. Because it's got grade, it performs well in different price scenarios, not just in higher prices, but obviously if it goes lower, we're still going to be generating strong cash flow. So I think that's how I look at it. And you know, at the end of the day, the market's already valuing us on the basis of how we continue to tick the boxes and move the project forward to development stage perspective. And as we continue to do that, we believe that it will be reflected quite well in the share price. And then lastly, there's a scarcity factor. There aren't that many projects like Arctic and Borneite out there that haven't been put into production, that are starting the permitting process, that are located in tier 1 jurisdictions. That's going to be a really important consideration going forward.
Very good, Tony. Well, I don't see any other questions right now. Just to remind everybody, it's the stock is traded on the TSX and the NYSE, right? At TMQ is the ticker.
TMQ is the ticker. We're traded on both those exchanges. If I may, Greg, I'll just make a
Yes,
little
please.
comment about the copper market. You know, it's been really exciting to watch this copper space, and I know copper today is trading, you know, 425. And just looking at the, you know, at the technical side, the copper highs came out in 2011, where copper traded somewhere around 460, and it certainly looks like it wants to go higher. And the big difference between now and 2011 is the fact that this focus on electrification, infrastructure development, EV vehicles is much greater today. And there's going to be a lot more copper needed going forward. And I don't think people appreciate how long it takes for these mines to be built. I talked a little bit about our project. And so the supply side's going to take a while to catch up to this great demand. So I think we believe there's going to be some real push in terms of you know, upside copper prices. Goldman Sachs just came out with a very lengthy report on where they saw copper going, and they certainly saw some very lofty price targets in terms of copper moving forward. So we think we're very well positioned. We've got two great opportunities. We've got lots of exploration upside in the district, and we look forward to keeping people updated on our progress. And we welcome any further questions. Please visit our booth. Pat Donnelly's there. He'd be happy to give you any information. And visit our website at trilogymetals.com. And thanks for listening to us today.